Hello YouTube, my name is Zach, and today I'm going to be analyzing Amy Lee of Evanescence. Now, I've had the flu, I've been coping with it for a while, so I'm going to abbreviate this video quite a bit. As you can probably hear, my voice doesn't have that same strength that it usually does, so I don't want to overdo it. So if this video is a lot shorter, I apologize. I'm going to jump straight into this. This is Bring Me to Life from the Synthesis live DVD. If you haven't seen my content before, this is a totally objective analysis. Normally I'd give like a whole spiel about it, but I'm really not going to go through all that today. This is strictly about technique. This is not going to focus on artistry very much. So try to look at what I'm saying from an objective educational perspective and apply the concepts of singing as a whole rather than specifically just to Amy. I kind of want to help you learn about your singing first and foremost here. Also, I'm going to have to chop this up because of copyright problems. I've had a video in this past week get completely blocked. It's been up for months because of a copyright claim. It's this lingering problem that I really don't know how YouTube is going to deal with, especially with this whole Article 13 thing that passed. I really don't know, but the effect that it's having on me as a creator and you as a viewer is that the only way I can keep these videos from being like either demonetized or me getting a strike or the video getting blocked is by chopping the audio segments up. I don't really know how to solve it yet. No one really does. So bear with me on that. I apologize that the singing clips are so short. As soon as I have a solution to that problem, it will be implemented immediately, I promise. This is not a reaction video. Just want to let you know up front. I've already analyzed your singing before I watch this, and I don't want to set any false kind of ideas about what this is about. I already know how this sounds, and I've analyzed it from the perspective of me being a professional voice teacher. So this is not a reaction video. Here are a few positives and negatives about Amy Lee singing. One, she is a highly emotive and expressive singer who communicates well with her audience. Two, she has a good use of dynamics that supports the contour of the song. And three, she has good tonal consistency from the bottom to the top of her range. And some negatives about her singing approach and technique are that, first off, she uses some push and force when she reaches the top end of her modal register. Second, she uses overly wide embouchures. And third of all, her legato can be pretty inconsistent at times. So let's jump right into the video. Here we go. If you go back and you listen at the very beginning of the entire clip, she's got this almost airy quality on her singing voice, and it's very piano, very quiet. Her dynamics are very soft. And as it gets closer and closer to the chorus, she gradually builds in volume. And so what this is a sign of is that she has a good awareness of the structure of songs. Most of the time when you sing a song, you want the chorus to be the most present thing that you sing, right? Because that's what sticks in people's minds, and it's kind of like the culmination of everything that's happened up to this point in the song. So see, what she's doing is she's gradually allowing her voice to get a little bigger and a little bigger, a little bigger, grow, and then when the chorus comes, it's like the big moment where she lets it all out, right? So, and a couple of things to point out about her process of using dynamics that are a little more technical is that when she uses the softer stuff, she's pushing a lot of air through. And typically you don't want to do that because what happens is the folds don't fully close. And if you've watched my videos before, you kind of know where I'm going with this, but when the folds don't close, the work that the folds do when they phonate and vibrate gets distributed unevenly, and it can lead to vocal damage if you do it too much. But it does allow the singer to create this kind of wispy, sort of almost mystical, maybe quieter, softer, more delicate sound. So that is the reason that singers will utilize it. It is a tool that you can utilize for certain things, but it's not something that you want to do all the time because you don't want to make a habit or a career or whatever out of keeping your folds from closing. That's just bad for you. So did you hear the way that she sung the word save? I'm going to go back and I'm going to let you hear it again because there's something that I don't think I've ever had to actually point out on this channel before here, and I want you to pay attention to it. Let me go back a little bit. So there are a couple of terms I need to define here before I kind of explain the observation I'm making here. First off, legato is the connectedness of vowels in individual phrases, and I've explained this multiple times, but for those of you who've never seen this, when you talk, your vowels kind of connect the words that you speak together, and the consonants kind of serve as separators between each word. But if you talk like this, your sentences don't sound right because everything's disconnected. So when you sing in a legato fashion, it makes your singing and it makes the lines and the words and everything have this feeling or sense of connectedness more. And so when you heard her go Ave like that, there's a clear break in her legato or in her line. I think that this is probably related to the first point that I made in the negatives. When she sings, she uses a lot of push and a lot of force. Now, the thing about singing with push and force is that it's a completely vital element of singing rock and metal music. Using a little bit of extra oomph in the sound is a part of the singing style, correct? The downside to it, though, is that it makes all of the muscles in the throat a lot stiffer, a lot tighter. They don't have the same freedom to move as if you were singing without that kind of push and strain and force. Like it is with virtually any part of your body. The tighter your muscles are, the less flexible they are. The singing voice is somewhat similar to that. The more muscular engagement you have and the harder you're pushing, the more difficult it's going to be to make a line smooth and connected. The way I can tell that she's using push and force is the sound that her vowels create. For example, when she sings the save, the word save, and she goes to that A vowel, it almost has this kind of sound to it. It doesn't sound like the word save. It has this sort of like almost Kermit the Frog-ish kind of Shakira sounding thing. That is usually a sign that there's a lot of push coming from the glottis, and the glottis is the point where the vocal folds touch. That type of sound that comes from that style of singing is completely indicative of a lot of muscular engagement. So it makes sense that in the middle of a line, she's having to take these almost awkward breaks between words because things are so forcefully engaged. Now, the counter argument or another perspective is like, how can you sing rock or metal without having some force? And I mentioned that a little while ago, and it's true. I mean, it's going to be there. And part of what you have to do as a singer in a style that uses this kind of force and pressure is you have to mitigate it as much as you can and try to retain as much of a singing sound and a sense of consistency as possible. And it's a struggle for basically every genre that doesn't emphasize like that super connected legato singing sound. It's a struggle everywhere. So if you listen to the words, I mean, I think the lyrics were, you can't just leave me breathe, something like that. But every single word was, you can't just leave me breathe. And you would never say that way, right? You can't just leave me. You'd say that as one connected line. So that's another example of the legato not quite being there. And legato ultimately comes from letting your vowels last a little bit longer. They elongate a little bit more. Now, you don't always have to sing in legato style. I don't mean to come across that way. It's very common in rock and metal music for singers to like be non-legato on purpose. Sometimes just for rhythmic reasons where they want to really hammer in the rhythm of a line, that kind of thing. So there is utility for not using a legato style. Whether that's what she's doing here or not, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not inside of her head. I can't really know. My best guess is that she's probably trying to be expressive. It's possible that she's not thinking about it at all. I mean, it doesn't really matter either way, but it is a technical thing that's worth pointing out. So let's keep going. So there she did that thing again where she got very soft right before the chorus. So what she's doing is by changing the dynamics that drastically, it prepares the listener for what's to come. It creates a sense of anticipation. If someone's just singing full blast, full blast, full blast, full blast all the time, the singing or the sound won't have the same impact as if you change the volume, change the dynamic. That's the point of dynamics in singing. I honestly think that a lot of modern singers have kind of forgotten that art completely of singing with dynamics. Everything's just one volume, mezzo forte or whatever, straight through. And I love seeing contemporary singers utilize dynamics to their advantage in the way that she is here. It's really good. So through that phrase, I mean, everybody knows that chorus, right? We've all heard that a million times. One thing that is definitely notable about her approach to singing it is that her tonal consistency is great. What I mean by that is that it sounds like the same singer from the bottom of the line to the top of the line. You don't hear this big drastic change in the delivery of the sound. One of the most common problems that you run into in singers, period, no matter what genre, no matter what style, no matter the gender, no matter anything, is that as they move throughout the range, the sound of the singing voice changes. It doesn't necessarily sound like the same singer at the top as it did at the bottom. My whole approach to teaching voice is that you should focus on the mid voice, because if you can develop the consistency in the middle of your voice and kind of gradually work that up and down, you'll have more consistency that's related to the sweet spot of where you sing. And it sounds like her singing approach is kind of like that. She kind of correlates her moving up and her moving down with her middle of the voice, like her sweet spot. And that's, in my view, the best way to go about it. Now, you'll find some teachers really emphasize range. You know, they want you to go as high as you can, as low as you can. I don't really operate that way, because you don't use that range that much. You don't use the super high and the super low as much as you do the middle. Now, of course, you want to be good at all of it, but my view is that it's better to be good at the stuff you're going to use more often than the things you don't use as much. It's good to have it there, but I like the fact that she's using her mid voice as her baseline of how she sings and develops her technique. I like that. That's very good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about embouchure. And if you don't know what embouchure is the shape of your lips. So when you speak, the embouchure is basically the configuration of the inside of the mouth and the external shape of the lips. So combining them together makes the embouchure. Typically, when you sing, it's more efficient if you use smaller embouchures. The vocal tract, or the space that the sound travels through once it originates at the vocal folds, has kind of developed ways to naturally adjust to different vowel sounds that it's trying to create through our process of speaking. And if you drastically change what happens with your mouth, well, then all of a sudden the end of the vocal tract is different from what your body's used to doing. And so what will happen is a different vowel sound will come out instead of the one you intended. So for example, in this line, she sung the words "frozen inside without your touch." Well, if you listen to the beginning of the phrase, even if she were singing the word frozen, the vowel O does not come out. It's almost a frozen, an ah. And the reason that sound comes out is because her embouchure is very wide. I've heard a lot of different arguments and, different ideas from people about why people might deliberately widen their embouchures. And it really comes down to a philosophical choice. Which is more important to you? Do you want to create the face that shows the expressiveness of the sound? Do you want to make your singing sound brighter? Because a lot of times when you widen your embouchure, the sound is brighter. Or is it more important to you to sing the actual true to the word vowel? For my school of singing, I've always learned stay true to the vowel, but I come from a classical background. So, with classical, it's vitally important that the text and the vowels are perfectly clear, no matter what the language. I apologize if I'm editing this a lot. I'm coughing like crazy because I'm still sick. So if it looks like everything's super jumpy, I'm trying to edit out the coughing as much as I can. So it's really just two philosophies. In contemporary music, you see the wide embouchure like at the expense of the clarity of the vowel a lot. And it's just a choice you can make. I like to use more efficient, true to the word vowels. Pop singers, contemporary singers, rock singers typically don't. There is a way to implement them both into singing, as I've done with several of my students, but I'm not saying that singers who use the wide embouchures are necessarily wrong for doing it. It's just they're going to create a drastically different effect than if they were trying to keep the vowel true to the word. And I just wanted to point that out so that you all know what it is. And so she uses wide embouchures that do affect the true vowel sound. And if it's a choice of hers, it's fine. It's not necessarily unhealthy as long as that wide embouchure isn't accompanied with extreme push and force. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so did you hear there where it almost had this kind of thing? So this is an example of her using some push and force at the top end of her modal register. And if you don't know what the modal register is, the modal register is like your speaking voice, the chest voice, so to speak. And above that is the head voice. And a lot of times in women, you'll find that they tend to have an easier time with managing higher pitches if they move into their head voice. But again, going back to the rock and metal thing, in rock and metal, push and force is a little bit to be expected. I just kind of want to give you an example of what it sounds like when someone's probably pushing a little higher than their voice naturally would want to, when it would probably be more comfortable and more suited moving into the head voice instead. That's the kind of sound that you get from it. So let's go ahead. So that was a belted note, right? And I know that we get a lot of, questions about what belting is. And belting, in a sense, is basically carrying the chest voice past where the head voice wants to engage. And it goes that way for men or women. My school of pedagogy has different ways to deal with this and usually tends to steer away from belting, but it's classical. So contemporary singing's full of belting. It's just kind of what they do. I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. All I'm saying is that if you don't change registers when your body wants to, you put yourself at greater risk for things like vocal injury, vocal strain, vocal fatigue, that kind of deal. So I'm not saying don't belt. I will never say don't belt, but I don't teach belting because I don't know of a way to keep it healthy and sustainable. There may be methods out there that can, but it's not really my field of study and my field of expertise, so I don't really do it. Typically, when people come to me and want to learn how to belt, what I try to help them do instead is coordinate their head voice better with their chest voice so that they can have a little bit more thickness at the bottom of their head voice. And most of the time, the audience can't tell the difference. Now, there are cases where the force and the push does make a huge difference on the sound, and then maybe belting is appropriate. But for the vast majority of the time, a well-coordinated head and mixed voice is almost indistinguishable.
I've been sleeping 1,000 years it seems. Got to open my eyes to everything.
Yeah, I mean, you can clearly see how much of a performer she is. Like, the hand motions, the facial expressions, like, you can see that she's probably sung this song a billion times, right? I mean, this is Evanescence's most popular song. Well, My Immortal was pretty popular too, but this is absolutely one of their greatest hits. And so she's sung this thing more times than she could probably count on 100 hands, you know? So the fact that she's still able to kind of tap into that performing side of it and still make it expressive, I mean, that's commendable in and of itself. I know for myself, I don't perform as much anymore because I just got tired of it. You know, it became so routine to me, and I sort of lost that passion and that love for being on stage and singing for people. And that's why people ask me all the time, why don't you perform? Well, that's probably why. I just kind of got tired of it. But the fact that she's able to take a song that she's probably sung a million times and still allow herself to get into it as much, that's just a wonderful testament to her devotion to her art. So no matter what you talk about technique, no matter what you say about, you know, how to develop someone's voice and, you know, the mechanical things and vocal health or not, it all comes down to how you communicate and how you express yourself, right? And she's found a way to tap into that element and that side of herself throughout her entire career and still put on a great performance of a song that she's probably sung more times than anything I've ever performed in any capacity. So good on her for that. So going back to that dynamic thing, what she just sung was the bridge. And if you know anything about form, the bridge is kind of a transitional point back into the final chorus. Usually it happens after a couple of verses, then it leads back into chorus, that kind of thing. But the reason I'm pointing that out is that in the bridge here, the purpose of that was to build back into that final epic sweeping end of the song, right? So she used bigger dynamics to carry the bridge back into the final chorus. So it wasn't so much about building a sense of anticipation as it was about, like, let's send this thing home. And she went to town. She let it all go. She let it rip, right? Again, it's a testament to her approach to singing artistry. And that's something that's extremely hard to find in so many singers. They ignore the elements of where they are in a song and they just sing through the notes, and they don't allow the contour of the song to dictate the contour of their singing. Excellent artistry, very good approach to singing. I wish more singers did it, so good on her. So she did what we so this kind of takes me back to, like, my early Baroque studies, you know, like we have these things that, you know, we go back and study like the old Italian songs and things. You'd find that the songs would be like in A, B, A prime form. And what that means is that you have your main line, the main thing that you sing, that was kind of like the chorus of the song these days, so to speak. Then you'd have the B section, which is like it's in minor. If the beginning's major, the B section would be minor. And then you have the A prime at the end, and the A prime would be like the A section with some decoration on it. So she's kind of taken that approach with the chorus. Like this chorus, she's kind of put a few little blue notes in there, and she did this big, like, almost, I don't know if it was an octave, but it was a really big interval jump downward to go back into the chorus, that kind of thing. So she's trying to vary and deviate on the chorus to make it more interesting at the end. We call that ornamentation, and part of the purpose of it is to allow the listener to not get locked into the same little loop of the same notes and the same melody over and over again. It gives you something more interesting to listen to, and you usually do it at the end end of the song to make the end of the song sound more interesting. Another artistic thing, I usually don't do this much pointing out of artistry, but she's done so many things that fit that paradigm that it's worth pointing out. Really nice on how she ended the song. Sometimes I hate being trained to hear this stuff because, like, for me, it ruins. Like, there's little things that ruin like what would be a really good moment in a song. Like I hated the fact that she, like, I loved everything that I heard, but then I heard her close from that live to the life at the end, and it's just like, no, why would you do that? It's tough, you know. I have to learn to turn that thing off in my head sometimes when I listen and just, you know, let it go. And people ask me that all the time, like, can you just stop analyzing? And yeah, I can. It's just, you know, when I hear things like that, it clicks the analysis thing back on. So I say all that to say that life, well, that's not how you say the word life, right? So why would you go life? You know, I don't know. Like, I don't really see the purpose of it. So I would prefer to stay on the vowel on life. I would prefer to stay on that. But, you know, she did what she did. It's fine. It's super nitpicky. Doesn't matter that much. The way that she delivered the outro of the song was terrific, though. I mean, it was so intense. She had so much power and so much passion behind her singing. It was very enthusiastic, very energetic. And so when you have a performer that's this into what they're doing, it's easy to overlook some of the you know, technical gaffes or flaws or whatever. And I think that she's done a really good job of that. And I know for myself that when I'm able to kind of look past the technique and just enjoy the singing, that she's done a good job, especially for me being as analytical and as like technical as I am all the time. And I really do feel that way, even though I've already seen this and I've gone back and analyzed it, you know, to figure out what I'm looking for. It still sweeps me up in it. And I like that. It's really nice. And so good on Amy Lee. Good performance. She's clearly an excellent singer, and she fits the genre very well. I know that she's gotten a lot of criticism from people for her technique. And I mean, some of these things are worth pointing out, like the tension and the push. I mean, there's a reason that people point these things out, because most of the time they're not sustainable. And over a long enough timeline, you're probably going to injure yourself doing it a lot. So I understand why people critique her like they do. And you know, I provided some of that on my own, but you have to keep in mind that these people are performers that do this all the time, and they put their bodies on the line for you to listen. And having a YouTube channel myself has actually helped me understand that a little bit better, that there are certain things that, as a performer, as a person in front of the general audience, you just have to put yourself out there and hope for the best. And so I'm glad that she's been able to pull this off with the efficacy that she does, and she's made such a consistent performance. And it's a really neat setting of the song with the orchestra and everything like that. It's just really good. Okay, so that is it. Please like and subscribe. I'm on a roll in terms of subscribers. Let's keep it going. I love the direction this channel is going, and I cannot thank you enough for your support. All of my socials are here on the page. So if there's anything you want to follow me on, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that, please feel free. I do have a Patreon. That Patreon is kind of what I'm using to give myself a supplement. You all know how the Patreon thing works. And I welcome you to join my Discord server, where me and a bunch of other people are having great music discussions about vocals and all sorts of other cool stuff. I'm trying to build a community there. So please feel free to join up if you'd like. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks. Bye.